Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see this room so full. I don't know about you, but I can't believe we're at the end of this forum. It's been a whirlwind of really great talks and discussions, and I'm sure many, many partnerships and collaborations will come out of what you've been able to discuss this week. And I think that collaboration is really key. We need to now start putting our words into actions and concrete and urgent actions. We don't have time to waste. We of course need to be present and hear cities' voices at COP26, but we need to think beyond COP26 as well. Brent Locken pointed out in a session we did this morning that we really need to make sure that every discussion, every big summit that we have that we're discussing the role of food and the role of cities in making a more sustainable world. Our first speaker in this closing session is someone I greatly admire, and this is Mark Watts, the Executive Director of C40. And he's going to talk about the city's food climate nexus and the Barcelona Challenge for Good Food and Climate. So Mark is joining us online. I'm so grateful to have him here.
Thanks so much, Danielle. It's really fantastic to be with you today. And thanks also to Mayor Colau for the invitation to participate, and always it's an honour to be sharing the platform with Mayor Colau, with you, and Mayor Sala, and the other distinguished participants. I don't know if the technical people can do anything, but I'm hearing everything I say back in my earpiece. I'll carry on, but
we'll try to fix it, Mark.
Difficult. Great, thank you. So where I need to start today, and I think I've got some slides to go with this talk, which is simply to note that we are, as everybody can now see all around them, in a climate emergency. We're also in a food systems crisis. 2 billion people are obese, whilst 800 million people are suffering food insecurity. And as we know, food contributes a third of global greenhouse gas emissions, and unfortunately, unlike many other sectors, food emissions are accelerating in the wrong direction as far as greenhouse gas emissions are concerned. Next slide, please, and thank you for sorting out the earpiece. So the science is clear. We need to transform our food system, and cities, as you've all been talking about today, are extremely well positioned to deliver that transformation and also push national governments. That nexus between healthy diets, reducing emissions, that's something that C40 has been working on for many years, and I must say in large part through our partnership in the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact right since the early days. A couple of years ago, 2019, we launched the Good Food Cities Declaration, which kind of captures C40's aim that everybody in our city should have access to a planetary health diet within this decade, the same decade that global emissions need to be cut in half. And that planetary health diet, you can see an image of it on the screen there. It's a kind of science-based reference diet that's been developed by our partners at the EAT Foundation and the Lancet, looking at what's suitable for feeding 10 billion people, but in a way that's healthy for people individually and sustainable for the planet. But to get to today's business, what we're really thrilled, everybody at C40 and myself particularly, is to be celebrating today the launch of the Barcelona Challenge, which shares a common ambition with both that Milan Pact and the C40 Good Food Cities Declaration, and has been created to address two key issues: the mitigation of and adaptation to the climate emergency through a commitment to transform local food systems, to ensure access to sufficient, sustainable, healthy and nutritious diets for all, and therefore preventing food vulnerability and enhancing food justice. So my job today is to tell you a little bit more in some detail about what is that Barcelona Challenge. Next slide, please. So fundamentally, the Barcelona Challenge is a platform that mobilises cities to act to deliver the changes that we need today, focusing on the most impactful areas that cities control. You can see on the slide here that the challenge has been designed in line with 6 action categories that are derived from the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. That's governance, diets, access, production, distribution and waste. And then there's an associated toolkit that sets targets and details the possible actions that cities could take to help city administrations get an idea of the social and ecological benefits that will be achieved if they achieve along those 6 goals. And I'll just talk through in a little bit more detail about each of those goals. So that first section is calling for cities to commit to the co-production of public policies in order to strengthen food systems resilience in the face of extreme climate events, and then include food in their city climate action plans, which is climate action plans are a condition of membership for every city that's part of C40. The second section, it's about making it easier to eat a healthy plant-based food in your diet as an individual, and aligning public food procurement with that planetary health diet by 2030, so that all of the food that public authorities are serving is enabling people to have that planetary health diet that's best for their health and best for the planet. The third goal on social and economic equity proposes embedding the planetary health diet and sustainable agroecological food supply approaches within services and programs addressing food insecurity and poverty, so bringing together the social, economic and climate approaches. Fourth then, on food production, and here this is something that's extra to the C40 Good Food Cities Declaration, is about promoting sustainable, socially fair, equitable forms of food production and processing of local healthy food by ensuring the territorial planning and management of local resources. Fifth, on food supply and distribution, is about making food systems more resilient, which we've seen has become a much more critical issue in the context of the COVID pandemic. Lots of city authorities feeding thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of their citizens. So to adapt food distribution and logistics networks, make them more resilient to extreme weather and other events, and to reduce the impact on nature and communities. And then finally, and particularly importantly, and thinking here about the recent Earthshot Prize, I'll mention again in a moment, bigger focus on methane emissions. This is about reducing food loss and waste 50%, cutting it in half by 2030 against a 2015 baseline. Really important, addressing food waste impact on methane emissions as one of the fastest ways to reduce the immediate impacts of global heating. So how are we going to do that? Next slide, please. So firstly, by leveraging the billions of dollars that city governments spend serving billions of meals each year. Just one example, New York City alone spends $500 million each year on serving food in schools, hospitals, and prisons, jails. So mayors' food budgets, their procurement powers, can not only affect the meals that they serve themselves, but can create and shape whole global markets. And we know this because cities are already doing it. Next slide, please. So I'm sure Mayor Sala is going to say more about this in a moment, but it's one of the outstanding global examples that Milan has transformed its school menus towards that planetary health diet over the last 5 years, replacing meat gradually with plant protein, reducing food emissions by 20% already, involving parents in those decisions. The changes have been broadly popular, supported by children and parents alike, so that Milan is now able to expand that programme to universities and private sector food providers. Or, of course, our host city, Barcelona, has done something very similar with over 100 kindergartens and is promoting change across primary schools right now. Or sticking in Europe, but moving up into Scandinavia, Copenhagen has quite recently transformed their food procurement rules, so they put what they call a climate weight into their purchasing decisions. So that climate weight helps them make informed decisions on the carbon impact of every food product that they purchase, and it's also created an internal label that helps kitchen staff better understand the sustainability of the foods that they're preparing, so the chefs are really involved. Or they're very near neighbours, just across in Sweden, Stockholm has got a digital tool that measures and tracks CO2 emissions from all the food purchased by the city-owned operations. And using that tool, it's also possible to monitor the amount of different meat and dairy products, as well as vegetables, that the city purchases. And then we see cities really changing the city-wide food environment. So again, Barcelona, Mayor Colau bringing in changes to 40 public markets where sustainable food is now being strongly promoted, not just to the residents of Barcelona, but to 60 million visitors to that wonderful city every year. Or over in the United States, in Los Angeles, a city I used to spend a lot of time in before the lockdowns, the chair of our organization. There, Mayor Garcetti's pursuing a goal of having all Angelenos living with half a mile of a fresh food outlet, and has refurbished and trained personnel in over 50 corner stores in underserved areas. Next slide, please. Many of you will have noted in the examples I gave here there, these were all wealthy global north cities. The challenge for cities in the global south is usually different, since generally they're not a source of high food consumption emissions currently. And in their case, generally the issue is to improve nutrition for the majority of the population while avoiding locking in high carbon diets in the future. So in the Philippines, we see there Mayor Belmonte, Quezon City in Manila, where diet-related disease is the leading cause of death now. Regulating to have healthier school meals and not only banning junk food in schools, but around them too. And the national government has been looking very closely at that policy, and is considering scaling it up to the whole country. The organisers told me to have a glass of water nearby. They were quite right. Or in Africa, in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, creating a school feeding program, taking responsibility back from international donors, so taking self-control to ensure that local and nutritious food is available for all school children. Just imagine the impact that we could have if we replicated just those incredible examples of city leadership in all the world's biggest cities. Next slide, please. So the other big problem that we all want to fix is that 1/3 of food in wealthy cities is wasted, racking up emissions from landfill dumps while people are going hungry. And food waste through methane that it emits creates more greenhouse gas emissions than the entire global airline industry. So as captured in this Barcelona challenge, the vision is to halve total food waste and then capture, redirect usable leftover food, collect and compost the remainder so that no food at all is dumped in landfill. And again, we know it's possible because cities are doing it. Next slide, please. Seoul in South Korea, well on the way to achieving that target of eliminating food waste to landfill already. They've got a world-class pay-as-you-throw scheme, which has reduced food waste by 13% already, and 95% of the remaining food waste is diverted from landfill. We see many other cities working on rescuing unsold food from big generators, markets, supermarkets for donation, and then using surplus food to close that city meal gap. Tons of them. Guadalajara, Lisbon, Philadelphia, Curitiba in Brazil. And of course, I can't talk about that with mention, of course, that Mayor Sala in Milan won the inaugural Earthshot Prize just on Sunday for their work on recovering and redistributing surplus food. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. Back in Africa, though, Lagos has been working with regional farmers, reducing their food losses. And in fact, because of the poor storage and logistics infrastructures, by the time that foods produced locally were reaching the markets in Lagos, they were already spoiled, barely edible. So creating food waste before anyone had had the chance to purchase it. So now, farmers with new kind of crate boxes, the city has strongly decreased the amount of food losses and waste. And similarly, in a wealthier city in Tokyo in Japan, they're now bridging with their municipalities that own disaster prevention stockpiled food with food banks so that when expiring date is approaching, the food doesn't go wasted and is used. Last slide, please. So I think it's, as you hear from that, it's a really kind of positive message of progress, which the Barcelona challenge is now just going to accelerate even more. The world generally is paying attention to food systems. It feels like the tide is going with us, although as everything related to climate action is concerned, not nearly quickly enough. A few weeks ago, for the first time ever, the whole of the United Nations agencies came together to focus on food systems. As I've mentioned, Milan won the biggest environmental prize in the world for its food approach, the Earthshot Prize. So I think food is really now at the top of the global agenda. I'm really proud that cities, mayors are leading the way, and that's showing ambition, shifting towards that planetary health diet, halving food loss and waste so that we can address hunger, poverty, climate change and resilience all together. So it's just a real honour, real privilege. I really want to congratulate Mayor Colau, Mayor Sala and all of the other visionary leaders on the platform today for leading us on this Barcelona challenge. C40 is very much here to support you and be part of that challenge. Thank you so much for the chance to be with you today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark. I love your optimism and your excitement about the Barcelona challenge and everything that's happening to transform global food systems. You're right, this is our moment, and we can't miss out on it. We have to take action now. So thank you again. I really appreciate having you here. It's now my pleasure to welcome Mayor Colau from Barcelona, Mayor Ribó from Valencia, and Mayor Aráujo from Quelimane, Mozambique, to join me on stage. Let's give them a round of applause while they make their way up here. Welcome to you all. It's so nice to see you and have you here and have your leadership present at this event. Before we begin, we're going to see a short video of 5 different mayors from around the world who are part of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact.
Hace 6 años, las ciudades decidimos pasar a la acción.
À travers le monde ancien, le pacte de politique alimentaire urbaine de Milan.
Un accord international pour l'émergence de systèmes alimentaires sains et durables.
С момента его внедрения мы добились большого прогресса.
Per això nosaltres treballem molt intensament amb el nostre entorn.
Pero la emergencia climática ya es una realidad y lo que está en juego es la continuidad de la vida en el planeta tal como la conocemos.
Les villes entendent collaborer dans la lutte contre le changement climatique. C'est pourquoi, en ce qui concerne notre alimentation, nous prenons les choses en main avec un engagement fort et inédit au sein du Pacte de Milan.
Барселонский вызов по здоровому питанию и климату.
Ici, à Barcelone, nous lançons cet appel international pour l'engagement des villes et leurs citoyens dans la transformation des systèmes alimentaires afin d'être à la hauteur des enjeux que pose l'urgence climatique.
Y reivindicar nuestro papel clave en generar este cambio, porque la ciudadanía de todo el mundo lo reclama y porque nuestro planeta está llegando al límite.
Pour ces raisons, nous, les villes, souhaitons agir pour une alimentation qui préserve la santé des personnes, des territoires et de la planète.
Каким образом? Путь создания согласованных и совместных механизмов управления продовольственными системами.
En promouvant des régimes alimentaires sains qui soient accessibles à tous, sans exception.
Incorporando la justicia social y ambiental en la producción y distribución de alimentos.
En renforçant la production agricole biologique.
En limitant au maximum le gaspillage alimentaire.
I especialment treballem amb l'educació alimentària dels nostres infants a les escoles.
Это наше обязательство.
Et le nôtre.
Y el nuestro.
Et le nôtre.
Such powerful messages from our urban leaders, and so great to have them. So I do want to start into the discussion, but we have Mayor Sala, who's joining us from online. So congratulations on your recent re-election. It's so nice to have you here. I want to start off by talking about the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. It was established in 2015, and I'm wondering from your perspective, Mayor Sala, how has it evolved since then, and what are the main challenges ahead for you and all mayors and cities working towards achieving the pact?
Yes, thank you, Danielle. First of all, I'm very happy to see so many mayors, colleagues, and friends reunited in Barcelona. Unfortunately, I am in Milan because in just 1 hour we are inaugurated the new city council. Now, let me say thank you, Ada, for your commitment and for the engagement for your city on food and policy action. And the Barcelona challenge, in reality, is a symbol of your leadership and strategic approach. Now, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact Forum, we are about to close, has greatly benefited from Barcelona being Capital Mundial de l'Alimentación Sostenible this year, and from your impulse. So thank you again. I'm honored, and also thanks all mayor, vice mayor, and city staff and partners, and I hope you have been nourished by the active discussion as much as you have been able to contribute to them, in person or online. I believe we had once more the confirmation of how meaningful our dialogue on food policies and the goals is at the regional and global level. So now, I do not have a crystal ball on the future of the Pact, Danielle, but I can present my view, my personal view on what we should collectively target. At the eve of such a key global process as COP26 in Glasgow, I believe we should continue prioritizing the nexus between food and climate through our collective work on production and consumption. And this is because we have a sound, very sound scientific basis that proves how ensuring good and healthy food for everyone and responding to the climate emergency go hand in hand. And the beautiful expression, planetary health diet, tells it all. This is an element in which cities are protagonists and can make a huge difference. Second, in 2015, we were pioneers, but now food systems are increasingly on the global agenda. This is also thanks to our works and the concrete result we were able to achieve together and contribute to the global discussion. Now here the examples are several. A major is the path towards COP26 with the Glasgow Declaration and commitment of cities on the food and climate nexus. A second is the United Nations Food System Summit held last month, which was a complex, very complex mechanism to support and ensure inclusivity on. A third is our joint work on the 2030 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Better and more robust food systems are key to achieve many of the goals. And cities are national governments' best allies. I am absolutely convinced that this is the point. We are the potential best allies for our governments. The Herzog Prize awarded this past Sunday to my city of Milan for the creation of neighborhood hubs to reduce food waste is yet another example. And the prize has been defined a sort of Nobel of for the environment. And we are happy to have been chosen as winner, but even more proud to have represented the value added by cities at the global level. And I'm very, very grateful to the C40 for having nominated Milan. But I wish other cities will take up the challenge of competing in the next years, starting from 2022, to demonstrate our collective contribution. Now, finally, coming back to us, the substantial value of the Pact, as always, is city-to-city support and exchange. We are a sort of family and thrive together. We do not want to leave anyone behind. We want our sharing to be even more focused and efficient. And for this reason, we are preparing a new version of the Milan Pact Awards after the learning experience that has been response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks to the continued support of the Fondazione Cariplo in Italy, the awards will come back in 2022 in an innovative form. We are also working to introduce a fellowship scheme that we believe will be of great interest for member cities. To conclude, we must be proud to have won the challenge of holding the forum successfully and in person. Barcelona deserves great credit for it. Many thanks to all of you for continuing to believe in the Pact. A warm welcome to the new cities, and we look forward to working with you and supporting your contribution. And see you all in Rio de Janeiro in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. I love what Mayor Sala had to say about all of these cities who've come together being a family, and you are nourishing one another through these events and through learning from one another. So I think that's a great, great point. Mayor Ribó, I'd like to turn to you now. In 2017, Valencia was the Sustainable Food Capital, and you were hosting the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact Forum. How have you been communicating since then about the food climate nexus and the climate emergency that we are now in?
Alcaldessa de Barcelona, Ministre,
dear Mayor of Barcelona, dear mayors, and all people participating and attending this 7th Forum of Milan. Dear ladies, to us, it is up to us to cooperate with all the other administrations and all the society in order to improve the life of our people, our citizens, and we need to do it by taking care of everything concerning it. But, of course, food needs to be among our major concerns. Food, from the closest level of administration, from city halls in cities, it really means a lot of things. It means health and well-being, providing everybody with the proper high-quality nutrition and food, without which people wouldn't be able to win all their potential. But for us, it means a whole lot of different things. It means environment and sustainability. It means not forgetting that people that are suffering from hunger are increasing, and that obesity is skyrocketing and becoming a paramount problem. And it means, above all, to take care of the primary sector, that is agriculture, food production, the environment, and the circumstances under which food is being produced and also is imported. So we as cities, we should not stop being part and becoming engaged in the green shift, the green transformation that is happening all over the world. And we need to integrate our urban world and the rural world surrounding us, providing us with food and nourishing us. So as with districts and neighborhoods, this needs to be a high priority. And the city of Valencia, as many other cities, needs to seek for the recognition and leadership of its own rural environment and rural surroundings, and we need to become a main market by promoting organic food and organic agriculture and production, by promoting our wonderful vegetables and fruits that need to have a better circuit of integration in our own cities. We need to promote proximity agriculture to integrate cities in their environing surroundings, and we will be able to promote Mediterranean diet to tackle and to stop obesity. And also, rural and urban gap will be narrowing, and we should be mentioning the empty Spain, and we need also to reduce the carbon footprint by reducing all chemical products in order to protect our agriculture from non-solidary commercial practices that are flooding markets all over the world with practices that our workers or our producers suffer from. So we need to promote through our healthy cities legal and political measures to be adopted and to be able to correct that. In this ever and fast-changing world, health for our citizens and food for our citizens require a change of paradigm, and so we need to leave behind the ill-conceived idea of uniform change. So we need to move towards a sustainable, environmentally feasible transformation, being able to integrate our cultures and our lands, and not forgetting, on top of that, the gender perspective. So this is our own main food challenge, a challenge that should be considered and seen by all healthy cities. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Mayor. I'm so
Thank you very much.
in rural connection. The mural that was behind you while you were speaking was started at the beginning of this forum to really make those connections. So thank you for bringing that up. I now want to turn to Mayor Aráujo and ask you about, you have this unique privilege of being a UNFSS, a UN Food System Summit champion, Mayor, and the responsibility of raising the voices in the international community. And I'm wondering from your perspective, what are the specific needs of cities? What do they need to really tackle the climate crisis, both in terms of mitigation and adaptation strategies?
Thank you very much. Allow me, first of all, to say that how honored I feel to be here today and sharing this space with all of you, those who managed to be here physically, but also those who are following us through the internet. And these days in Barcelona, we have been learning a lot. And I want again to thank the mayor, the alcaldesa de Barcelona, for her friendship, but also for his team, for the very professional way they organized this gathering of mayors from all over the world. Coming from the global south, I think that I'm also here bringing the voice of the south, where most of the times we face enormous challenges that probably most of you may not be aware because you are at another level of development. But looking at the role of cities in the international arena, starting from, for example, for those who attended COP15 in Copenhagen, for COP21 in Paris, and for those who are going to be at COP26 in Glasgow, we can see that we moved a lot. There was no place for cities at COP15. We made a great step, a leap forward at COP21 in Paris, where mayors from all over the world, we met there in Paris, and we made our voice to be heard. Today, there is no doubt that there is a place at the UN, but also there is a place in the international community for the cities and mayors to be heard and to voice the challenges that cities face. The UN came with the Sustainable Development Goals, but I think that if we look closely, all SDGs do happen at a certain place, and that place most of the times are the cities. And mayors and local governments play a crucial role because we are elected by our peers, so we have an additional legitimacy because we work closely to those who have elected us. So the challenges, the first challenge, to coming to your question, that I would like to put here is that we consolidate our place at the international table. The UN and governments need to recognize more and more that cities are partners. We are not competitors. We need to work together, and we need to consult each other, because if we consult each other and we bring that additional legitimacy that city leaders do have, I think then we will move forward faster and in a sustainable way. The second challenge I want to bring here is the need, as Mayor Salas from Milan mentioned, the need for cities among ourselves to work together. It's important that no one is left behind. One of the challenges that we face is lack of capacity. In most cities from the south, municipalities and other local government institutions do not have the human capacity to understand and to respond both to the challenges of climate change, but also the challenges of food systems. It requires training, it requires financial resources, and it requires the ability of gathering information, processing it, so that the challenges that we face are on the table for the negotiation, but also for partnership. One example I wanted to bring here is the example of cooperation between the Milan municipality and Quelimane municipality in Mozambique. Because I'm bringing this example because most of the times, the cities from the global south, we don't have the capacity, the human capacity to access the available financial resources that exist in the world. There are so many foundations, there are institutional financial organizations that are willing to support. But if you don't speak the language of those institutions, you can access those funds. For example, to access funds from the European Union, you need to have a certain level, and you need to understand the language, the parole, and the requirements that are set up. And most of the times, that language is not understood at the local level in the global south. So what we did with the city of Milan, we made a partnership and we made a bid to some funds at the European Union, and we managed to win because we worked as a team. The Milan city brought their human capacity, they understood our challenges, and together we moved to have access to these funds. And therefore, we managed to, now we are implementing in Quelimane 2 projects. One is called Quelimane Limpa, which means clean Quelimane, and the other one is called Quelimane Agricola. So what do? We are transforming waste into compost. Thank you very much. And by transforming waste into compost, actually we are solving 2 problems at once. The first problem is that we had challenges in managing our waste. But on the other side, my city, Quelimane, which is the capital of Zambezia province with more than 6 million inhabitants, the city is about 400,000 inhabitants. We have 52% of child malnutrition. So you can imagine the impact of that, not only today, but 10 years ahead. If those kids are not well fed, 52% is more than half of the kids that we do have. So we can imagine what will happen about their body mass, about their intellectual capacity. So will they be able of challenging or being in a position to face the challenges that we are going as humanity to face in 10 years? So by looking at food, we may be solving a bunch of challenges that we face. But I just brought the issue of food as an entry point for further cooperation, for more understanding, and for more strategizing, both from the south and from the north. I think that we are partners and we are at the same house. We cannot let some rooms behind. We need to work together and we need to fight together to be able of winning this battle, both in terms of the food systems, but also the challenge of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. That was so inspiring. And I think you're absolutely correct. If we can by solving the food crisis and the multiple challenges we face within food, we can solve so many other problems. And we should all remember that as we're working together as city leaders and building that family, that house that so many people have talked about. You are all part of this great community where you can learn from one another. So Mayor Colau, I'd like to turn to you now. We've listened to Mark Watts speaking about the city's food climate nexus, and the COP26 is obviously just a few days away. Why is it important that cities lead in transforming food systems? I thought I can go to the video. No problem at all. Thank you so much. So Mayor López from Bogotá has sent us a video with her thoughts, so I will thank the tech team for playing it.
Un cordial saludo para la...
Hello to all, and greetings to all the participants
de Barcelona. Es realmente un placer participar en este espacio con ustedes. Gestionar cómo se alimentan las ciudades es un reto mayor para la humanidad, ya que incide directamente en desafíos claves como la sostenibilidad ambiental, la seguridad alimentaria, la salud de nuestros ciudadanos e incluso la reducción de las desigualdades sociales y territoriales entre el mundo rural y el urbano. Es por esto que este pacto promovido por la Municipalidad de Milán es de la mayor importancia para nosotros, porque implementarlo significa no un desafío, sino una oportunidad de garantizar que verdaderamente construimos una ciudad resiliente e incluyente. Crear sistemas alimentarios sostenibles es para nosotros una herramienta para múltiples propósitos, como por ejemplo, promover una mejor relación con el medio ambiente, el que nos rodea, priorizando la producción local y rescatando los saberes ancestrales. Asegurar la seguridad alimentaria de nuestra ciudad, pero además de eso garantizar
to guarantee also the health and well-being of our citizens, to reduce carbon dioxide emissions,
y de minimizar el transporte al promover el consumo local. Y cuarto, garantizar que la alimentación de todos los ciudadanos de Bogotá, esa que reciben, sin importar su estatus socioeconómico, los ayude a llevar una vida próspera y sana. Para lograr esos propósitos, Bogotá cuenta con una política pública de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional que tiene una visión de largo plazo hasta el año 2031. Bajo esa política, implementamos proyectos innovadores como los mercados campesinos y el apoyo a las plazas de mercado, a través de los cuales acompañamos campesinos de nuestra región metropolitana en la siembra de especies alimenticias y medicinales con buenas prácticas agrícolas y garantizamos la comercialización directa, sin intermediarios y con pagos justos para los campesinos. Trabajamos por mejorar la calidad de la alimentación de los bogotanos y ofrecemos precios justos que ayudan a los productores del campo y consumidores de la ciudad. De la misma forma, promovemos el consumo local, el que minimiza el transporte de carga, uno de los mayores contaminantes del aire en nuestro territorio. Durante el año 2021 hemos realizado más de 400 mercados campesinos que han vinculado a cerca de 800 productores en nuestra región metropolitana, generando ventas por casi $660.000. De la misma forma administramos 18 plazas de mercado con 3.600 espacios y durante este gobierno invertiremos aproximadamente $32 millones en su fortalecimiento. Bogotá también promueve la conformación de huertas orgánicas con prácticas agroecológicas en espacios urbanos y rurales de nuestra ciudad. En esos espacios impulsamos el intercambio cultural y la transferencia de conocimiento ancestral entre generaciones. Trabajar por una política alimentaria sostenible también implica mejorar la forma en la que disponemos los residuos. Bogotá viene trabajando en la expansión de su planta de biogás, una iniciativa para reducir las emisiones de dióxido de carbono que genera el relleno sanitario de la ciudad y así generar energía eléctrica y superar la era del relleno sanitario en Bogotá. Actualmente la planta de biogás Doña Juana evita la emisión de 800.000 toneladas de dióxido de carbono cada año. Estamos trabajando para aumentar esta capacidad de la mano de las plazas de mercado para aprovechar mejor sus residuos y construir una política alimentaria multidimensional que involucre a todos los actores de la ciudad. Por otro lado, para asegurar mejores sistemas alimentarios es necesario hacerle seguimiento. En la ciudad contamos con un sistema de vigilancia alimentaria y nutricional a través del cual recopilamos y analizamos información para proponer acciones de política basados en evidencia, en datos, que mejoren la política alimentaria de los bogotanos. Por último, quisiera hacer una reflexión. Trabajar por los sistemas alimentarios es trabajar por la resiliencia de las ciudades. Durante el año 2020, de acuerdo con el informe de la FAO, la situación de subalimentación en Sudamérica llegó al 7.8%. Este año, en el marco de la respuesta a la pandemia y adelantándonos a una de las apuestas de nuestro Plan Distrital de Desarrollo, Bogotá implementó una renta básica para los hogares que cayeron en pobreza. Este programa contribuyó a proteger el esquema nutricional de los ciudadanos más vulnerables, de las familias más pobres durante este año tan difícil de pandemia. Según un estudio, esas transferencias monetarias en Colombia y en Bogotá durante la pandemia, el 90% de los beneficiarios las usaron para alimentarse mejor en sus familias, para evitar el hambre. Por nuestra parte, entre marzo del 2020 y octubre del 2021, Bogotá ha brindado renta básica a 1.357.000 hogares, contribuyendo a la resiliencia y equidad en nuestra ciudad. Bogotá está comprometida con consolidar prácticas sostenibles en la producción, comercialización, transporte, consumo y disposición final de los alimentos, para lograr un equilibrio que permita el desarrollo social sin afectar el medio ambiente y que evite el hambre y la inequidad. Creemos que este es un buen ejemplo de cómo construir una visión multidimensional desde perspectivas económicas, nutricionales, sociales y ambientales que impactan directamente sobre los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, el número 2 de hambre cero, el 3 de salud y bienestar, el 6 de agua limpia y saneamiento, el 13 de acción por el clima. Cuenten con Bogotá para seguir trabajando para que la alimentación de nuestros ciudadanos sea un catalizador de sostenibilidad ambiental, desarrollo social e inclusión social.
I loved what Mayor López had to say about the need to really have policies that help both farmers and eaters, that they can't be separate, that you can't separate the two, they need to happen together. So I thought that was a great point. I'd like now to play a video from Susan Aitken, the leader of the Glasgow City Council, and obviously her city will have a huge spotlight shined on it in just a few days. So over to the video.
Hi, I'm Councillor Susan Aitken, leader of Glasgow, the host city of COP26. We've long recognised the key role of food in health, climate action and our economy. Just this summer, and following extensive consultation with partners and our communities, we launched the Glasgow Food Plan, a roadmap to building a fairer and more sustainable approach to food policy. Central to this is the need to reduce the impacts on greenhouse gas emissions from our food system, to increase the food we produce locally, and to reduce waste. But it's also about ensuring that everyone in our city can eat healthy, affordable, good food, no matter where they live, what their income or personal circumstances are. The collective message as we head towards COP has been that climate justice and social justice are inseparable. Our policies on food are central to that. The Council works with our Chamber of Commerce to connect with local businesses on sustainable food choices and reducing waste. Glasgow's food growing strategy provides practical support to communities to develop projects to grow fresh and nutritious foods while doing their bit to reduce the carbon footprint in the food system. Our reputation as a post-industrial city perhaps makes Glasgow seem an unlikely candidate to become an exemplar for urban living and sustainable food policies. But translated from Scots Gaelic, Glasgow means green place. Not only are we home to some of the largest urban green space of any city in Europe, but we are close to Scotland's agricultural heartlands. As the nation's biggest city, the progress we make in Glasgow in addressing our food systems will have a significant national impact. Late last year, I was delighted that the name of our city was associated with a genuine opportunity for social, economic and environmental renewal with the signing of the Glasgow Food and Climate Declaration. Participation now in the Barcelona Challenge will help our cities to sharpen these commitments and give them tangible meaning in terms of tonnes of carbon emissions saved, health improvement and a vibrant local food system. From the global to the community level, the challenge has the capacity to galvanise, to motivate and to coalesce cities around. It's really enthusing to see such a willing response from across the international family of cities. Finally, I'd like to add that as COP26 host, not only will Glasgow provide the table at which food system sustainability can be discussed in November, we'll seek to ensure that our collective leadership on this vital agenda is recognised and progressed. Thank you.
I'm glad Councillor Aitken was able to bring up the real connections between climate justice and social justice. Again, these things are inextricably linked, and we need to make sure that they are talked about at every discussion we have. We have to keep driving that point home as much as possible. And I have to say, seeing so many women in leadership in cities taking on these challenges in creative ways. And now I get to turn to one of my favorite mayors of all time, finally, Mayor Ada Colau. And with the question, so the COP26 will obviously take place in just a few days. And it's likely one of the most important summits of our lifetimes. For the future of the planet, for the future of us all, for the future of food systems. The states and the delegates will review commitments adopted under the Paris Agreement. And what is the message that cities want to send to the UN Summit, and how does the Barcelona Challenge really help deliver this message?
Thank you, Danielle. We have translation, so I will speak in Catalan, Spanish, English. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you to one and all, to mayors who are together with us to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor Ribó, the sister city of Valencia with which we share this bet on sustainability, the change of the food system, and Valencia was the capital city of this model. I would like also to give my greetings to Mayor of Mozambique and the mayors of Glasgow, especially also the mayor of Milan, one of the main promoters of the Pact of Milan, and he was supposed to start their mandate, their term. So we would like to thank him for being with us online. And one thing we have seen is this mutual recognition or this acknowledgement of the leadership, the way of work, of cooperating, not competing, but cooperating, a way of working that would like to communicate to our states, our respective states, because we have this feminist, rather horizontal way to work based on common goals, not based on competitiveness. And this is a model we need for our 21st century. This is one of the things we would be able to bring into the COP26, this rather horizontal or this way of working we have been using for a long time in cities, which is so different. And I'd like to thank you all, to one and each of you all here today. It was not simple and easy to organize this forum. We did it during the pandemics. We did not know which would be the situation we would be facing these days, but we can say that it has been a success thanks to every single person cooperation. We have had 700 attendances, 250 cities, 150 guest speakers, and 360 65 organizations of all levels and of all disciplines, so from the grassroots and civil society. So thank you all, but I'd like to thank to Álvaro Porro, for whom I would like a round of applause for his engagement. Álvaro Porro, he is the Commissioner of Social Economy of Barcelona, Local Development and Food Policy, but he needed to create these policies within the City Hall in Barcelona. He needed to develop these social policies and food policies starting from scratch. And at the same level he did it internally, he also coordinated with a wide team of people. He coordinated this forum in this difficult context. It was really an incredible gesture. It was really an incredible success. In these 3 days, we have had the opportunity of sharing experiences and knowledge and tools to promote this change that hopefully we will be able to bring about. And it's urgent. It's an emergency because the food system causes 1/3 of emissions stemming from the climate change, which has started to accelerate. We need to stop with our efforts, but as it has already been said these days, we have realized that cities can be leaders. They are leading the change, and especially in the mitigation of climate change situations and at the level of sustainable food. And the Milan Pact of Milan, it's an incredible tool that is gaining recognition and presence, and it was a pact that was already so badly needed in 2015, but it is increasingly needed because our climate crisis is worsening, and time goes against us, against the whole of humankind, and we are running out of time, and literally we are running out of time, and we are aware of that, and the commitment of cities is straightforwardly being declared. The work of cities, Lubin, C40, USLG, everybody, all the many different city networks that have been committed and involved, that have been able to place the agenda of cities in terms of climate change and policies concerning food at the forefront of the work. And we are aware that we are doing our homework. We as cities, when we're doing it directly, straightforwardly, we are being proactive and active, and we are being also brave, a lot more than many other organizations and institutions. We are seeing that around the world, we as cities, we are facing with very little budget and very little tools, because we need to remind that cities have a lot less budget than regional or national governments, and we are leading a lot of transformations and changes, reducing traffic, changing mobility. For instance, in Barcelona, we have developed this municipally based power or utility society, and we have increased also bike lanes and using or promoting tramway or alternative means of transport, and we have also been trying to promote local production in terms of food. We have also in public procurement initiatives, we can leverage everything, all the sin, because we are investing institutions. We have contracts with private companies, amounting to thousands of millions of dollars. We are increasing our regulations. We are working together with schools. We are convinced that the schools should be at the core of our society and the society of the future, because they're the future citizens of the world, the ones that will be leading the future sustainable world. They are being educated there with. And we as cities, we need to protect our natural spaces within and outside at the outskirts of our cities. But even if we as cities are leading and paving the way, and we are so indispensable because we are the biggest food consumers of all and consumers of energy also. We need to be part of the change, but we are not enough, and we need to bear in mind we are not enough as main game changers. We, in the public administrations in these past years, the general environmental awareness has increased, but at the public administration level, we have promoted this education discourse. We have raised awareness among our citizenship, and people and citizens have increased their responsibility accordingly, and people have reduced the use of private vehicles, they have reduced the waste, they have increased recycling, they have reduced the use of plastic, they have started using more and more public transport systems. But, I mean, citizens are doing their part, and if we want them to be willing and to be properly motivated, we, as public administration, public bodies, we need to give an example, especially all the administration levels that have greater budgets. So it has come time for big corporations and states to assume their own share of responsibility. It's the only way in which we as institutions, we will be credible, and we will have this democratic authority, and we will be showing with our own example which is the way, and therefore citizens will gain their own responsibility. In terms of emissions, for instance, only 5 countries from the Western world or the First World, only 5 countries are emitting 60% of greenhouse effect emissions and gases. So there's such a huge inequality in terms of pollution. Only 5 countries are the main greenhouse effect producers, and only 5 companies worldwide are responsible for a high percentage of these emissions. So we as cities, we need to claim this responsibility. We need to demand that. We need to ask corporations and states to assume their own responsibility and to set the path for the future, and to give example for citizens to assume their own share of responsibility. And this involves ambitious rules and regulations that need to be changed. Rules and regulations are bound to change in terms of building and harbors and ports, airports, mobility, packages, of course, at the level of food also. And conservationism or ecologism has went from being minority to a major movement. It has changed the common sense. It has changed the discourse. So it's so positive that conservationism or ecologism is considered not as an option, but as a flag that we all need to raise. But very few leaders wouldn't be willing to give up to their own SDGs, but now we need to go from words, from the SDG words to the facts, and not to keep working on formula, repeating and replicating the mistakes that were made during the 19th century. We need to move from policies, one policy, to different policies. We need ecological awareness not to cease being only a trend, a fad, or a label, because the survival of future generations is at stake. And I think that it's a basic criterion we would need to stand by. I mean, we cannot consider progress to increase emissions. It's absolutely silly. Talking about progress involving pollution, progress and pollution are not equal, just opposite. And Xavier Carol, he's a researcher from the Research Institution of Spain. When talking about the quality of air, he says we need to leave behind the idea of the past century that we need to choose between smoke and hunger. as if progress could be separated from pollution and exploitation of the environment, as if in order to be able to eat food, we should be bound to destroy nature, is just the opposite, is absolutely the opposite. Increasingly, smoke is the main driver for hunger, because without natural spaces, there's no biodiversity. Without biodiversity, we do not have sustainable food. Without sustainable food, there's no life, there's no future. So we could not be able to conceive a future without proper food. The food of the future will be sustainable. Otherwise, it will not be able to move forward. That's why states need to start working. They cannot leave it behind. And they are supposed to assume their own ambitions and decisions. And as it has already been said, we have this coming meeting point, Glasgow, the summit for the conference of the United Nations on climate change, the COP26, and we would like to send a clear and straightforward message. That's enough with words. We need facts and actions. It's absolutely indispensable to promote a change in food strategies, and it needs to be at the core of policies. We need to change the model towards low-carbon food production system. Why is it possible? We need, and we know we want to share this message worldwide.
Of the Milan Pact. It was great to have you all during these 3 days and share first-hand experiences about urban food policies. In light of what we have been discussing during these days, we would like to keep the momentum of this global forum and connect it to the COP26 in Glasgow. That's why I propose to adopt per consensus the following statement, and I will personally bring it to Glasgow. We, the city leaders of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, call on the global leadership gathering at UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, to recognize that global action on the climate emergency cannot be successful without urgent action to address the food systems of member states and across the world. We call on national leaders to make a clear commitment to address the fundamental impact of our food systems on climate change. We are already playing our part as cities through the launch of the Barcelona Challenge, which supports action on climate change through urban food systems. We hope this statement can grasp the message we all share. Y dejadme ya que termine diciendo que efectivamente.
Let me conclude by saying.
Let me finish, because the states are a must, but they are not enough. So as cities, we are very close to the citizenship. We need to make an effort to convey this demand of the citizens that the states at international level need to lead this change of the model, but they are not enough. So in order to achieve a sustainable food and stopping the climate change, we are all a must. Regions, states, citizens, companies, social movements, everybody has to collaborate. And this is also what the Glasgow Declaration says, with more than 600 companies and 600 cities, and we see a lot of mobilization from young people, and they remind us that there will not be no welfare and no future without a planet. We need to implement urgently these very brave and bold strategies in order to reduce this environmental impact without leaving no one behind. And from Barcelona and Glasgow, we are fully convinced that the time of excuses has finished. And we are very convinced that We can achieve it. We have the science, we have the reasons, and we have the collective awareness and the commitment of people, and we also have a future we need to win. So we'll see each other in Glasgow, and we'll see you on the streets, and it is a pleasure now to give the floor to two guests. Thank you for being here. Through Zoom, the Vice President of the Spanish government, Teresa Ribera, who is going to be a representative of the Spanish government in the COP26. So it's important to have her here. And also the Minister of Consumption, Alberto Garzón. Thank you for being here. In this venue, and also because for the first time from this Ministry of Consumption of the Spanish government, you are taking the actions that are needed. And thank you very much. For example, the decrease of the meat consumption for responsibility and sustainability, and many other initiatives that are being implemented from the ministry. So thank you very much for being here. To both of you, Minister Garzón and Vice President Ribera, who are going to be in Glasgow, and we are going to ask them to convey our message to Glasgow. We trust you, and we know you're going to fight so that our voice is heard in this summit in Glasgow. So thank you very much for being here. Teresa, whenever you want.
En un punto tan importante.
And such an important point and a relevant point. You can see the subtitles in the screen.
De Naciones Unidas. Cada contribución es relevante, pero en particular generar buenos hábitos alimentarios ayuda a muchas cosas, no solamente por el bienestar del planeta, también por el bienestar de las personas. Alimentarse bien, con alimentos de proximidad, incentivar esa relación correcta entre los ámbitos urbanos y la capacidad de generar alimentos, prestar atención al modo en el que se producen, son algunas de las recetas más significativas de cara a favorecer una contribución relativamente sencilla y muy importante a mitigar las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero y a favorecer soluciones que hagan de nuestras ciudades espacios mucho más habitables. Si a eso le sumamos la reducción de desperdicios, la capacidad de recuperar, de hacer una buena gestión de los recursos alimentarios, encontramos un incentivo adicional. ¿Por qué? Porque cada alimento que producimos lleva detrás toda una infinita cadena de valor de utilización de recursos, de suelo, de fertilizantes, de agua, que impacta de forma significativa en el planeta. Por tanto, hacerlo de la manera más eficiente, más inteligente, favoreciendo la producción de aquello que necesitamos, favoreciendo la producción de proximidad para reducir los impactos asociados al transporte, son buenas y sencillas recetas para contribuir de manera colectiva al gran desafío del cambio climático. Para hacerlo, el papel de los entes locales es determinante. Su compromiso como responsables municipales, favoreciendo buenos hábitos desde la infancia, es clave. Generar espacios donde poder producir parte de estos alimentos, aprender a hacerlo bien, hacer que cada uno de nosotros como consumidores, como responsables de nuestros propios hábitos alimentarios, participemos en esta contribución, resulta importante. Actualmente, el desperdicio de alimentos representa en torno al 8% de las emisiones globales de efecto invernadero. Por tanto, sabemos que llevar a cabo campañas divulgativas, informativas, generar buenos hábitos, forma parte del catálogo de aportaciones para reducir este porcentaje de las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero y la pérdida y el desperdicio alimentario. Desde el Gobierno de España estamos trabajando en ello. El Ministerio de Agricultura está incentivando precisamente una contribución significativa de la cadena alimentaria al contexto de la economía circular. Pero, como decía antes, si hay una administración implicada, si hay algo que agradecer, es precisamente a los alcaldes y a las corporaciones municipales de algunas de las grandes áreas, de las grandes ciudades de nuestro planeta, el que se impliquen directamente desde los elementos, desde los entornos escolares más básicos, más tempranos, en esta tarea. Los gobiernos locales son son un actor clave, fundamental en este esfuerzo. Y el lanzamiento del Barcelona Challenge for Good Food and Climate es una experiencia extraordinaria que recojo y agradezco para compartirla con el resto de los participantes de la Conferencia de Cambio Climático de Glasgow, que empieza en muy pocos días.
I want to thank the mayor and the vice president both for their really powerful words and urging us all to take action. I'd now like to invite the Minister of Consumption Affairs at the Spanish government, Minister Alberto Garzón, to give a few words. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much to you all for being here. Thank you very much to the organizers for having invited me to this the closing of such an important and relevant event. And I fully agree with what has already been said. And I think it's very important to convey this holistic vision of the food systems and the food chain leading to consumers. It is important to take a big step so that citizens can understand that when they buy a product in the supermarket, what's behind there is a long chain with processes, with costs, or ecological, economic, and social that must be quantified. And the economist, I am an economist, have been responsible of invisibilization of the costs. So we thought that it was possible to create this imaginary world without taking into account the non-renewability of the resources and without taking into account something which is fundamental to me. That our planet is not infinite, it's a finite planet. So these type of actions by the mayors, these experiences from which we learn from the central administration, and what we learn from our colleagues in these initiatives, we need to be able to accept as a society and to teach, to educate, so that we are living in an eco-social emergency. Everybody has said that before me, and everything is linked and connected. So also the gender issues, because the scientists and the civil societies acknowledge, and the public institutions acknowledge, and even the Pope and many relevant stakeholders in this society, that we are in an emergency. We are facing a triple crisis: loss of biodiversity, climate change, and pollution that has an impact on our environment. And if we take into account these elements, that without a planet there is no life, we need to act. And this call to action in today's event is a call to action that we need to follow. And you are doing these in your local spheres. But as Ada Colau, the mayor of Barcelona, said, many institutions have to act as well. The food systems are co-responsible of climate change and this eco-social crisis, this interaction of dimensions, social and ecological. So the climate change provokes inequalities in the south, as the mayor said, but also our consumption habits and behaviors have a negative impact on the climate change. And scientists say that it's going to be very difficult to achieve the goals in order to prevent the temperature rise of 1.5 degrees. And we need to be co-responsible because this is an emergency, and there are some transformations that are necessary. The production models, following different initiatives that we've heard during this event, and from the mayors and the municipalities, and also in other spaces, and giving support to the short cycles of production, proximity, and also reducing the ecological cost of these commercial relationships, and also from the consumption behaviors and patterns, because as the mayor said, there are some political costs when you do and say a few things, but we have our own principles, and we need to be responsible, and we need to face these threats. We need to transform our consumption patterns, and it's our responsibility to face the climate change, changing diets, and going for healthier diet, a more sustainable one and more responsible one. So the message is to live in the limits, within the limits of our planet. This is very humble, but very difficult as well. And sometimes it might seem unachievable, but living within the limits of our planet. The cities are leading this change through different initiatives, some of them with a lot of innovation, with the implementation of processes in order to transform the realities that we live, and also to make our life possible in the planet in the future. And I have learned a lot, but I am aware that our representation as a government, and in coherence with the Vice President Teresa Ribera said, we assume this task through this call to action so that the central government can bring this message to the COP26, how deep this message is, and also to implement other initiatives and synergies that will lead us to achieve this ultimate goal. The people who deny the climate change, they deny the scientific foundations, the research, and the people who deny this climate change do nothing, and they ignore the cost of not doing anything. They ignore the consequences of not doing anything. So this is why we needed to do what this declaration says. Time to move to action, because fighting climate change and preserving the life and the planet, we need to move to action. So it's not only doing diagnosis or, as the mayor said, the labels. We truly need to be bold and brave and do the political actions that go hand in hand. So representatives and mayors, you can count on the Ministry of Consumption in Spain, because we are committed as individuals and also as politicians representing the society. As I said, our goal is to live within the limits of the planet. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of closing this event.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister Garzón. And I want to thank all the government leaders who have spent time with us over the last few days and for really highlighting the role that food systems can play in solving the climate crisis. We've heard time and time again that this is an emergency, and it is. But if we all work together and be bold and brave, as the minister said, we can save ourselves and the planet. As I said on the very first day of this conference, there's a lot of work to be done, but with city leaders like we've heard from, I feel confident that we can make real change, and I want to thank them all again for their leadership. Please give them a round of applause. At this time, I'd like to ask the mayors to exit the stage. Thank you so much.
Chapter 1, the Garden of Eden. If we took the whole of human history up until this very moment and compressed it into 24 hours, one day, we would have discovered agriculture at 11 p.m. The Industrial Revolution would have taken place 1 minute ago at 11:59 p.m. Our mode of life is a historical anomaly. If the biblical God condemned Adam and Eve to farming, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat your bread, then was the Garden of Eden the long era of hunter-gatherers? Chapter 2, parasites. Ever wished for a world without insects after an ant attack on your kitchen or that mosquito bite on your tiny toe? I have. Yet, in a world without insects, us humans would die in months. The tiny monsters are the life-spreading pollinators, as well as a ubiquitous compost-making squad. Insects also feed the birds. 40% of bird species are in decline, tail spinning into loss. Fish have existed for 480 million years, long before we came along. Yet in the last 40 years, we have slashed marine populations in half. We are pushing the meteorite, and the meteorite is industrial agriculture. And I wish in exchange for cheap, unhealthy food, we were just losing beauty or companionship or diversity or meaning when we lose a species or two. The problem is, when we started building our own decks of cards to gamble with, we forgot the cards were building a giant, complex house we stand in, yet not fully comprehend. Our house is a house of cards, invisible threads binding all species together, and us with all species. Every card we remove makes other cards follow suit. And man, are we removing cards fast. 3 species every hour. COVID, just another of how many sets of cards crumbling over our heads because we keep disrupting a balance we don't understand. We scream blindly, yet we can't speak the earth's language yet. My generation is wondering whether to have children at all. My teenage students are terrified about whether they'll get to grow old. Will we ever learn, Mother, to listen to your rhythms? Our lives beating too fast for us to hear your whisper. At the end of the human story, Hercules discovers he is still mortal. We are not gods. We are not gods. We omnivorous mammals, we don't produce the food. The machines don't produce the food. The earth does. We have hijacked and twisted our own umbilical cord as if we weren't connected to it. We still live in the mother, the atmosphere we breathe from, the layers of a womb protecting us. What big-headed parasite can claim to be separate from its victim and source of food? Chapter 3, Fairies. Supermarkets are effectively supplied every day by an army of magical fairies. All the farms in the world are like old McDonald's, with a moo-moo here and a clock-clock there, E-I-E-I-O. Yeah. I mean, why let the ugly side of food production, processing, transportation, get in the way of consumption? Let the consumer believe It is all done by fairies. Yes, fairies grow your food and don't need no social security. The back kitchen our food comes from is not rurality anymore. It's poverty. The fairies are not invited to the table they provided for. A living wage is too much freedom when the work being offered is only fit for a slave. Chapter 4, the market will take care of itself. Recipe for maximum profit, low-cost ingredients from industrial farming, long shelf life for convenience and long-distance transport, craving-inducing additives make it addictive, evade responsibility and taxes where possible, aggressive marketing. Thank you, thank you. We truly are a success. Global sales of ultra-processed foods have risen 43.7% in the last 13 years. I see a bright future of insulin-dependent children against a backdrop of desertified land that used to be a monocrop. If you factored everything in, like the environment and stuff, the true cost of a burger would be $200. And we're paying 10 cents. Ha! Talk of a good deal, huh? Meanwhile, 1 in every 5 years spent on the Spanish public health system is for treating food-related illnesses. I bet the taxpayers are delighted at having to pay to clear our mess. Chapter 5, the apology letter. Last month, a 12-year-old this tall, a student of mine, had to write an apology letter to a girl whose breakfast he had stolen for the 3rd time. I el teu esmorzar? I ask. He's gone into the habit of eating his mid-morning snack way before the break. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at the subsidized school canteen, he loots the bread. I call in his mum. She's very punctual, very composed, until I bring up the food issue. She breaks down in tears of undeserved shame, confesses even eggs are outside her price range. Mother and teenage son share a room. She is poor. And I wonder who should write an apology letter to whom? Chapter 6, and it's the last one, common ground. In the playground as a kid, when the rough boys kicked the heavy ball high, I used to believe if I closed my eyes hard enough, the ball would not hit me. But of course it did. It is so painful to look at the facts with open eyes, how deep the global cut is bleeding, how bad the infection inside it can be, the future holding its breath, but we must dare to see. Well-informed hope is not for the faint of heart. So here we are. May we be strong enough to face the facts, embrace the facts. May our eyes and hearts be open as they are hit. Here we are, at the end of the Barcelona Forum, 10 days away from Glasgow. Here we are, helping the wound crack to let the light shine. It's always darkest before dawn, and that's why there's so much work to be done. Dear brave cities challenging the past to write a different future, in this room or online, together we are standing over fertile common ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Yes, keep clapping for her. She was amazing. I'm in tears. want to thank the amazing poet, Adriana Bertrand Ania. She's a spoken word artist from Barcelona. She's award-winning, and I'm so grateful to have her sum up a lot of this forum and bring us all together in a really emotional and creative way. And I just want to repeat one of the lines, may we all be strong enough. And I think that's what we all need to remember going forward, is that we all need to be strong as we face these challenges, because we can solve them, but we all need to work together. And she really gave us a perfect ending to this forum as well. Before I invite Mayor Colau back to the stage, I want to thank all of you who've been in person, who faced tremendous challenges getting here because of COVID restrictions. I want to thank everyone online who's been faithfully watching at different times of the day, getting up early or staying up late. I want to thank our technical team and all of the staff at the convention center, the wait staff, and everyone who's just taken care of us and made sure that this summit, this forum goes very, very smoothly. So Mayor Colau, I just want to give you the final, you don't need the final word anymore?
Thank you, Danielle. Adriana, gràcies, moltes gràcies, de veritat. Ens has fet emocionar, vibrar, sentir-nos juntes. Ho necessitàvem, és la millor cluent.
Thank you very much. It was the best closing with you helping us vibrate.
Di cuore, gracias, muchísimas gracias a todos y a todas vosotras por venir a estar aquí.
Gràcies per estar aquí, per totes les persones que estan online de manera presencial. Thank you very much, because we are every day more. Thank you, because it's not an option, it's a need, and it's a great opportunity as well to correct the mistakes from the past and to build a better world with prosperity, with empathy, with sustainability, with love, of economic opportunities that make this world fair and possible, where love wins hatred and life beats the death. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. We'll meet again in Glasgow all together. Thank you.
Mayor Colau, if I could invite you back on stage with all of the other mayors for a photo, that would be great. And while they're gathering, I just want to remind everyone of a few things. One, please return your water bottles. It's very necessary, or they're going to be lost forever, and that was not the point. So please return your water bottles.
All political representatives.
Also come to the stage. Could all the government leaders please come to the stage as well for a photo? A final reminder, everyone, we'll be taking a group photo outside with everyone who's been attending the forum. I want to thank you all again for being here. It's been a huge pleasure and an honor to be your host this week. Thank you all so much. Safe travels, and I'll see you all in Glasgow.